Now, not only that, but even if we presume that Dr. Glynn, Paul's blood alcohol level was at its highest possible, the maximum blood alcohol level, all of the alcohol in the system had absorbed. We'll give Dr. Glynn the benefit of the doubt there. Even that, the range that she said that the body eliminates alcohol, she just put at a .015. That's her average that she used. But she said in studies that that could be as low as a .009, which is nearly half of that number. So, you know, a .09 really turns into more like somewhere around, just around a .08 or even maybe a little bit lower than that, okay? That's assuming all the things that she's assuming. And I shouldn't say assuming, what I should say, she's guessing. She's guessing all these things to convince you of that. So when you look in reality at what we're looking at with the structural grade extrapolation, who knows? I mean, it's arguable that even looking at that at a .15, we heard that when Jeff French got up here, and I know he tried, he's another state witness too, and he tried real hard to get around the questions I asked him about those machines, the blood testing machines. I asked him, well, don't you calibrate these things with some type of variance in them? Meaning that when you test this blood at a .06, you know, the machine could actually have tested it at a .05 and that's okay. And he said yes, but then he kept on coming back and trying to confuse everybody by talking about doing 2 blood tests, okay? But that's not what I was talking about. I'm talking about the machine itself. When you do a blood test on those machines, they vary a whole point either way. So that .06 could be a .05 and we would never know about it because it's going to say .06. So it's just like a scale, like standing on a scale when you take your scale at home and you calibrate it. It could be a pound off either way. Well, in this case, that's very important because that, and he had to say that it could have been a .05. So even with Dr. Glynn's calibrations here on this retrograde extrapolation, he would have been at a .08 on her .015 rate of elimination. He would have been at least a .07 or below if you just take in the actual averages, which is what she really staked the reputation on. And, you know, that's assuming all of the things that she had to say. So it's very obvious that I think when I start hearing stuff about science that we have experts disagreeing on, just look at the tape and see what's really going on here. Okay, he's obviously not intoxicated. We know that. He's obviously not impaired because he does all the sobriety tests. Okay, he was able to do the alphabet test just fine. He was able to do the heel-to-toe test, and although he supposedly failed 2 of the factors, he passed 5 of the factors, okay? And in my opinion, he passed the hardest of the factors. He was able to balance. He did all his steps and everything else. The one-leg stand, he did that. He just stopped and watch the tape. It sounds like he just stops because he doesn't fall over. He just stops. And gaze nystagmus, well, that test is a very difficult test for us to talk about because that's the one time where you can't put a video camera in somebody's face, okay? But when we see Paul on here, he's cold sober. He knew what his limit was, and he was under it. Now, marijuana, and the other big part of this case, the part that Mr. Getz keeps on pushing, this thing about carboxy-THC, and that you can have this in your system and you're automatically guilty of a crime, okay? Well, the amount of carboxy-THC in Paul's system was 10 nanograms. 1/3 of what they normally see at the lab. So you have a very low amount of this byproduct of marijuana. And remember when Dr. Glynn testified about the byproducts of marijuana? Water is too. So where's this going to end? Are we going to punish somebody for having water in their system? When Dr. Glynn and I talked about the marijuana and the carboxy-THC, a big part of that was at one point we were discussing, well, if I took a couple of gallons of this stuff, of carboxy-THC, and injected it into somebody, what would the effect of that be? And she said, no, there's no effect on the body. There's nothing. It doesn't impair you. It doesn't do anything. It's kind of like a fire. All it is the ashes. You don't know when the fire happened. The ashes are just there. That's what that is. Now, the thing about carboxy-THC as well is that there is no study that can put somebody being high on marijuana with the amount of carboxy-THC in their system. Dr. Glynn testified to that. And on top of that, she can't do a retrograde extrapolation on the marijuana. That was discussed between her and I, and she admitted that. So really, we have this carboxy-THC that could be in Paul's system for, she said, up to 24 hours after the fact. So basically what Mr. Getz is asking you to do, and he's a real good prosecutor, and he's doing his job, because that's his job, is he has to come in here and do this. He's saying, well, if Paul smoked marijuana the day before, but he's driving, then he's guilty of drunk driving. I mean, that's what that comes down to. In reality, that's what it is. Okay? Because we don't know when he smoked marijuana, and the one thing that we do know is he probably didn't smoke very much because the levels are so small that it's really almost negligible. The Department of Defense doesn't even count that as a positive test for drugs. I mean, that's how crazy that is. Why are we even here? We have a guy who, okay, he had a couple of beers, and he drove, but he drove just fine. And you know what? It's not illegal to have a couple of beers and drive. That's not illegal. Or a couple of drinks, because we don't even know what he had. And so, you know, the science and everything else, I understand it sounds great, but just, you know, look, you are the people. It's up to you. These are your laws. This decision is yours. You know, and it's not anybody else's. It's not mine. It's not Judge O'Brien's. It's not Mr. Getz's. It's yours. So, I would ask that you find Paul not guilty of this. Because are we really going to punish somebody for smoking marijuana and hours and hours and hours and days before? And not even smoking that much? The marijuana had nothing to do with it. We know that because when you watch this, he's not impaired. Is that really what we've come to here? Please, ladies and gentlemen, stand up for him. Stand up for Paul. He didn't do anything wrong. We shouldn't punish him for that. So please, as I said before, you are the people. You have the power to do this. And it's up to you and nobody else. It's the most unique situation that I can think in our legal system, is that you have the power. So please, ladies and gentlemen, find Paul not guilty. Thank you so much.